I'm Emily. I got married last year to my husband, who I've known since high school. I wish I could say we're living a dreamy newlywed life, but it's far from the sweet and peaceful days I imagined.
You don't need to make dinner tonight. I'll be home late again.
In the morning, as he's leaving, he says, "Another late night at work." When I ask,
Yeah, really busy.
he just replies without looking at me and hurries out. He used to meet my gaze, saying I'm off and would come home early. I know him well after being together for 10 years, and I can sense that he's lying, though I wish I didn't notice. A husband lying to his wife, coming home late every night, it's almost too obvious not to suspect an affair. But I lack the courage to confront him. He was my first love in my junior year of high school, and we've been together for a decade. I can't imagine being with anyone else, but the thought of divorce terrifies me. I wonder if pretending not to know is better for my happiness. This leads me to think that way. So, I haven't sought advice or tried to investigate on my own. Bottling up these feelings and constantly worrying is bad for my mental health. I struggle to act normally around my husband and often avoid being with him, making my alone time miserable. I'm unsure what the right move is anymore. The only ray of hope in these gloomy days is the family living next door. The Johnsons, a couple in their 30s with a young child, live in the apartment next to ours. It all started when their 7-year-old son, Timmy, accidentally walked into my apartment. He panicked upon seeing a different home and a stranger and started crying. Mrs. Johnson heard the commotion and came to help while I was still bewildered. It all started in a shocking way, but little Johnny quickly warmed up to me. Maybe because I work as a child care provider and am used to handling kids. Mrs. Johnson is really friendly too. After living here for a year, we visit each other's apartments, chatting over snacks. She's 5 years older than me, but she looks and acts so young and vibrant. Being with her really lifts my spirits. As the wives hit it off, we used to invite our husbands too, often having meals together as families. But lately, with my husband coming home late, those gatherings have become rare. Yet, even with such a close relationship, I couldn't bring myself to talk about my suspicions of my husband's affair. I felt too embarrassed to bring up such a troubled issue with the Johnsons, who seem to have a happy family life. Then, one day, since my husband was working late again and said he didn't need dinner, I went out to eat with a close girlfriend from high school. It was after work and I've been feeling stressed lately, so I ordered beer, which I don't usually drink. My friend seemed a bit surprised by this. But after talking and having a drink with a friend I'm comfortable with, I felt a bit relieved. That's when she said,
Actually, I've been hesitating whether to tell you this, Emily, but there's something I want to talk to you about.
with a serious expression on her face. "What's up? You're so serious all of a sudden." With the help of the alcohol making me more cheerful, I asked her in a high-spirited tone. And then she dropped a bombshell.
I saw Mike the other day, walking arm in arm with another woman.
Hearing that, my brief feeling of elation quickly faded. Mike is my husband. This friend is like my bestie, and lying is not in her nature. Plus, she's known Mike for 3 years in the same class, so mistaking him for someone else is unlikely. And given Mike's recent behavior, this sighting seemed all too credible. "Tell me more," I asked my friend in a barely audible voice. I didn't want to pry. I would rather not know if I could help it. But now that a clue to the truth was right in front of me, I couldn't help but ask. According to her, it happened 4 nights ago. The color of the suit he was wearing and the time she saw him all matched up. She didn't take a photo in the spur of the moment, but she was certain she saw him walking arm in arm with another woman.
I debated whether to tell you because some things might be better left unknown. But this is about your life, and I think you should know so you can make an informed choice. We're still in our 20s, and we don't have kids. This might be your last chance to start over, and I want you to make a choice you won't regret. Whatever you decide, I'm on your side,
My friend said. She's always been there for me, ready to rush over whenever something's up. Because of that, I believed her even without proof. I don't want to believe that the man I've been with for 10 years and married is having an affair. But I can't pretend not to know anymore. After parting with my friend, I was heading home when I saw Mrs. Johnson, my neighbor, seemingly returning from the convenience store. Noticing me,
Hey Emily, welcome back. Tough day at work.
she greeted with a smile. Her warm words suddenly made me tear up, something I couldn't do in front of my friend. Maybe because she knew my husband and me from the time we were dating, I didn't want to show her my tears over being cheated on. Noticing my crying, Mrs. Johnson was surprised but quickly embraced me kindly, staying with me without asking for any reasons. Later, she invited me over and made me some warm herbal tea. While I was feeling down,
Let's play, Emily sis.
my spirits were lifted by little Johnny, who innocently came up to me and said,
Hey, you should be in bed by now.
said her husband, perhaps sensing how I felt, and took Johnny back to his room.
I'm sorry for the noisy house.
Apologized Mrs. Johnson, but I actually felt grateful. Being alone in that house at such a time, I might have lost my mind. It was that distressing. But around 11 p.m., the doorbell rang, ding dong, and Mrs. Johnson answered it.
Sorry, is Kathy here?
I heard my husband's voice at the door. Then,
Your husband's here to pick you up. What will you do? You're welcome to stay here.
Mrs. Johnson kindly said. I was surprised that my husband came to pick me up at this hour. He hadn't come home before the last train recently, nor did I think he had much interest in me anymore. Mrs. Johnson seemed to sense something was up between my husband and me and showed concern. But I couldn't impose any longer and went home with my husband. I can't pretend anymore. I need to have a serious talk with my husband. I know that, but what should I say? What do I want? I'm still unclear on these answers. I meant to talk to him, but no words came out. As soon as we entered the house, he was the one who started talking.
Emily, let's move out of here.
I couldn't hide my surprise at his unexpected words. Why? I asked. After all, this apartment was where we moved after living together in a cramped space, choosing it for its size, anticipating a child. So, why move out after just a year, with no child yet? It seemed too sudden. And moving together, not breaking up, despite his affair, I couldn't understand what he was thinking. Was he planning to deceive me indefinitely? At first, I was just confused and full of questions, but slowly anger started to take over.
The reason. Never mind that. Just come with me.
He said, but without a reason. Are you thinking of moving because it's inconvenient for your affair? Such negative thoughts started to dominate my mind. No way. Our neighbors have been really good to us. I don't want to move. If you want to move, you can do it alone. I blurted out loudly without thinking. Then my husband, looking annoyed, said,
What's that supposed to mean? We're married and I should move out alone? We can still see the neighbors outside even if we move. This is important, so stop being selfish and listen to me.
He calls me selfish, yet he's the one cheating and betraying our marriage. I had reached my limit. Why am I the selfish one? You're the one being unreasonable, suddenly wanting to move without giving any reason. It's hard enough that our marriage is struggling, and now you want to take away the people who are my support system. Don't assume I'll just agree to everything. Enough is enough. I yelled and ran into the bedroom. I don't understand. I thought I was so happy to be married to the person I love. I never imagined it would turn out like this. Tears started flowing again, soaking my pillow. How many hours had passed since then? I had fallen asleep at some point, but was awakened by loud knocking on the door. Ding dong, bang bang bang. Ding dong, bang bang bang. The sound of the doorbell and knocking alternated. It was still dark outside, so it must be late at night. But why at such an hour? I was getting scared, and then I noticed something else strange. My husband was gone. We usually sleep together in our bedroom's double bed, but he wasn't next to me. I thought he might be sleeping on the living room couch after a fight, but he seemed to be nowhere. If it was my husband outside, he would have keys. And if he locked the door when he left, there would be no need to ring or knock. A visitor in the middle of the night when I was all alone in the house. I was getting more and more scared. The loud knocking on the door continued. I braced myself and peeked through the peephole, but there was no one there. What? No way. A ghost. Nobody was outside, yet the knocking persisted. I let out a gasp, breaking out in a cold sweat. Then, the next moment,
Emily sis.
I heard a familiar voice. Johnny. I looked through the peephole again, more calmly this time, and saw just the top of little Johnny's head. What the? Relieved. I unlocked the door and slowly opened it. Jeez, Johnny, you scared me. What's going on? But then I saw his face, looking so desperate and close to tears, and I was shocked all over again. What happened? Why are you here at this hour? Are you okay, Johnny? He hugged me.
Emily sis. I'm so glad.
Crying. Glad. Confused and stunned. I then saw the neighbor's husband coming out.
Johnny. I just called the police.
He started. Then seeing me,
Emily, thank goodness.
Exclaimed. Both the neighbor's husband and Johnny were saying thank goodness. What did that mean? I was completely lost. Then the landlord and his wife also came, and seeing me, said, thank goodness. What in the world is going on? When I asked, this was the story. About 30 minutes earlier, a woman had been ringing the doorbells of several apartments in our building, asking, is this the Smith's place? Given the late hour, residents were suspicious and called 911. But in the meantime, the woman had shown up at the Johnson's place. The ringing was loud enough to wake Johnny. Mr. Johnson answered, no, but curious about what the woman intended, listened at the door. Then she went to the next apartment, the Smiths, which is my and my husband's last name. It seems my husband answered, and soon after opening the door and a brief conversation, the noise stopped. Since then, there had been no sound at all, so they got worried and came to check on me. But wait, where did my husband and that woman disappear to? Suddenly, I was terrified. There was definitely no one in the house. Did that mean my husband was caught by this suspicious woman? The thought was frightening. As I was about to join my neighbors to look for my husband, he came out of the elevator. Seeing us, he seemed to realize what had happened, bowed his head deeply, and apologized.
I'm so sorry for causing a disturbance.
None of us, including the neighbors and the landlord, understood the situation. My husband reluctantly began to explain.
The woman who caused the commotion today is my colleague. I'm sorry, it's my fault.
Here's what he said. She was a mid-year hire at his company this spring. He was assigned to mentor her at work. But she mistook his kindness for romantic interest and began to develop feelings for him. When he noticed her overt affections and rejected her, saying he was married, she got furious, accusing him of leading her on and being hurtful. Then she started making up stories, spreading strange rumors in the office, and even threatened to harm me if he didn't comply. My husband, not wanting to escalate the situation, tried to keep her calm and even agreed to have dinner with her after work. The encounter my friend witnessed was probably one of these dinners. However, he had kept our home address hidden from her, but she followed him without his knowledge and threatened him with photos she had secretly taken of me, saying, if you don't leave your wife, I'll harm her. That was what happened today. He saw the photos and rushed back from the dinner, suggesting we move. He had gone outside to talk to her when she showed up, but when the police arrived, she started shouting and was taken away in a patrol car. I was stunned, unable to immediately grasp this unexpected truth. My husband had to go with the police for questioning, leaving me in a daze. The thought of unknowingly being in such danger made me tremble. Mrs. Johnson was there the whole time, supporting me. If it weren't for her, I wouldn't have been able to stand on my own. The next morning, after my husband finished with the police, he returned home. The neighbors, knowing I would be scared, had let me stay with them, and I went back home as soon as my husband returned. And then, I decided to talk about what had been on my mind for a long time. I spoke about how cold he had been recently without any apparent reason, how I had felt anxious and suspected infidelity, and how I had been feeling sad. My husband didn't make any excuses and apologized for everything. But you were trying to protect me. I need to be thankful for that. It must have been hard for you too, Mike. Thank you. As I said this, my husband, as if a dam had burst, started to cry. But from now on, please don't shoulder everything alone. If we had thought this through together, maybe neither of us would have had to suffer like this. I'm happy that you want to protect me, but I want to protect you too. We're a married couple, after all. Let's live our lives together, combining our strengths. As I gently hugged him, he hugged me back tightly.
I'm sorry. Thank you for believing in me.
His words felt heartfelt for the first time in a long while. I later found out that at that time, my husband had been prepared for a divorce. The woman involved had a criminal record for threats and stalking, and this time she was arrested for obstructing public duties and was likely facing actual jail time. With the incident resolved, my husband and I decided to move to a new place for a fresh start. The Johnson family next door had been very important to us, but I believed that if they truly mattered, that wouldn't change no matter where we were. More than that, we wanted to make a choice that would allow our family to live in genuine comfort and trust. 3 years after moving, we had a child, and now the three of us are living happily together. We still keep in touch with the Johnsons, occasionally going camping together or having tea parties at each other's homes. Although we don't meet as often, we still have a great relationship. And Johnny, he adores our child, saying,
I'm this kid's big brother.
To me, the Johnsons are an admirable and wonderful family. I hope to nurture a family like theirs, where we all support and help each other and are there for those in need. No matter what challenges come our way, my husband and I will work together, hand in hand, to overcome them.